we have another tournament, everybody, and this one is Duels of Runeterra number 12. Yep, you heard it right. We are at 12 of these bad boys so far, and that's every other week. That's 24 weeks. Wow, I feel old. But anyways, first up, we have round 8, which is the first round of day 2. It's going to be BBG versus GreenSeers. Both of these players have topped other Duels of Runeterras in the past, and obviously you guys all know Bruised by God. BBG in this tournament was playing Zed Bannerman, Ezreal Swain, and MF Sejuani. GreenSeers had Karma Lux, which we usually see BBG playing, Ezreal TF, and Ashe Sejuani mid-range, which interestingly enough was playing one Braum. So as always, if you guys are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. We got tons of tournament content, tons of deck content, anything you could want from Legends of Runeterra, you're going to find here. Don't forget to hit the like button if you do like this particular video and turn on that bell so you know when the rest of the tournament stuff comes out. All the information for everything you need for the tournament will be below, including the player info, player deck links, links to the Discord, all that stuff. So strap in, get ready for round 8 of Duels of Runeterra 12.
I can't see what's going on, so I was terrified you just like zoomed in on my face.
Yeah, no. No, that's only Fresh Lobster. That's when I zoom in on his stash. No, I switch it to the monitor up top, so that way I'm not staring at the monitor up top. I can stare at it right in front of me. So we do have, it looks like the Ezreal Swain up against the Ezreal TF, so this is going to be an interesting. I wonder if this is going to be similar to the Ezreal Karma mirror matches of old.
I mean, it's definitely going to be at least a little bit refreshing to see. You know, we do still have Ezreal coming out of both of these players, and the P&Z spells that you're running are relatively the same, but, you know, it's going to be something new and interesting, at least a little bit.
Do have the match scores on here. So this is game 1, just to clarify. I know it took a little while to get here, but we have made it. We are in the first turn currently, and 2 thermal beams to start off here by BBG, as well as a pair of mystic shots. So kind of a interesting hand, plenty of removal. Curious to see what GreenSeers starts off with here as well.
And this passive early game feels like it benefits BBG pretty heavily. The deck out of GreenSeers is still running a lot of early units. We see Jagged Butchers, Dreadway Deckhands, Petty Officers. Like, there are a lot of 1 through 3 drops in this deck that he has just completely floated the first couple of turns for. Meanwhile, the only early drops are coming out of BBG that are at least proactive are the Chempunk Pickpockets. And this is a card that I like a lot. Not so much for its ability. I think its ability is never going to go off, and players can get baited by sort of trying a little bit too hard to go into that. But it is, you know, a 2-mana unit that has 3 attack and trades well into Crimson Disciples, which is sort of a very key attack breakpoint to have in a format like this.
And we do see this quick mystic shot, basically snap decision from BBC. Always good to see decisive plays. Roping is always a a thing to be discussed in almost every tournament. So he's very, very decisive with that. And we do see 2 Swains early on in BBG's hand as well. So we'll see if one of these does come down. And as you would call it, the professional pass has come through. And for those of you who might not have been here when we were talking about the professional pass, and this is a Boulevard coin term, a professional pass is more specifically when you pass priority back over to your opponent without basically doing anything. And that is because in Legends of Runeterra, you want to be the last one to act with the most mana, to put it simply.
Is that a term that I know that I've talked about that a lot. I don't remember if I've ever called it a professional pass. As much as I'd love to take credit for it, I don't know that that is a term that I coined specifically, but I'll take it.
Wait, well, you're the one that's been using it anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So he might not have coined it, but he's the one that's been using it on the cast. So if anybody else wants to take credit for that, feel free to in the chat.
But so far, you know, a pretty passive early game out of both players, throwing out their removal, throwing out their units. It's not really working out. GreenSeers, you know, throws down the Twisted Fate to get a little bit of value, but this thing's not going to stick around.
Did I really say BBC?
You did. I wasn't going to say it on cast, but I was going to call you out in chat. You know, I'm not going to repeat the naughty words that you said.
Dude, I'm always down to get called out. You know me. Oh, God, I'm so sorry, BBG. Definitely not a mistake I want to make. Oh, man. So anyways, we see the Chump Wump come down. And and the attack come out by GreenSeers. So this is going to get a little bit of block trade value here. And the other Mystic Shot doing work, getting rid of this. Oh God, you know, I always
Petty
forget.
Officer.
Yeah, that one specifically, I always forget the Petty Officer.
It's all right. I could not remember the name of Windfarer Hatchling last night.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, it's not a Navori, you know, it's an elusive that doesn't have Navori or Kinku in its name. I can't be bothered to remember it. I just call it, you know, it's the GG card. That thing comes down, somebody scoops.
Yep, that is the elusive finisher. And these two thermal beams, honestly, I mean, he's been sitting on them. He's already used some removal with the Mystic Shots and stuff. So seeing this TF probably does not scare BBG too much. He does have plenty of removal to get rid of it. Even the Ravenous Flock, which I do think, yeah, he is playing a 3 of Ravenous Flock, as well as 3 of Culling Strike. So there's going to be no shortage of removal right now.
Yeah, and so far BBG has done a pretty good job of maintaining that sort of Ezreal lead, which is to be expected. The strength of GreenSeers' deck, because he's not running, you know, sort of all in on that Pilfer package, is that typically you get to level up your Ezreal faster than anybody else because you have things like Make It Rain that, you know, on a high roll will give you 3 targets on the Ezreal, but BBG isn't playing enough units for something like that to be relevant. So BBG pretty likely to maintain this dominant position and be able to get his Ezreal leveled up first.
And just in case anybody needs it, we do have some commands today. I'm going to go ahead and, figures. I don't even know my own commands. It's bracket. If you go ahead and type !bracket, you will be linked to the day 2 schedule as it currently stands for round 8 and eventually the top 16 once we make it there. It's just a heads up if anybody does want that information.
I think here's my pro tip about streaming for you. Just make brackets and bracket both the commands. Same with like decks and deck lists.
Yeah. You're going to have like 8 different words just so no matter what anybody types.
Because it can be a little embarrassing to just sit there and chat like typing deck, decks, deck list, deck list.
Yeah, somebody earlier did the same thing. They typed deck. Yes, Celine. He put deck list and then deck lists, and then it works. So good. Thank you for trying, Toys. So we do see we're on BBG's turn here. He does have 3 mana left. He is, at this point, probably thinking about one of the thermo beams to remove something here. But his opponent does still have 9 mana, and that's going to be rough. You know, we don't really know what could potentially come down next. It could even be not a Riptide, thankfully, but another Yordle Grifter coming down, another Petty Officer, even a Dreadway Deckhand. So he might still be able to go pretty wide after this Thermo Beam.
Yeah, and I do like the Thermo Beam coming out of BBG. That Twisted Fate was not a problem, but it was kind of approaching the point where it could become a problem. It had been on the turn. It had been on the field for a couple of turns. You know, there's still a fair amount of draw to GreenSeers. Once you hit that, like, 3 or 4 draw mark of Twisted Fate, that's usually when you want to kill it, just because there are a couple of draw 2 spells in the deck like GreenSeers. You don't want them to be able to fire off 2 in a row and just get that automatic Twisted Fate level up on you, because that can make it very difficult to win the game. BBG is currently well suited as, you know, sort of the advantageous player in a game like this because he has that backup win condition. He's going to be able to get the Leviathan down on 8, and, you know, Thermogenic Beam is the only answer GreenSeers can have for something like that. So if you can let him get that leveled up Twisted Fate, all of a sudden the playing field is sort of evened in the fact that, you know, you both have this backup win con. Speaking of backup win cons, that Riptide Rex really hates this chump one.
Yes, it really does right now. I can't. Wow. Talk about a lot of targets. And I want to speak real quick to the combo you just mentioned with like Leviathan and Swain, right? That combo, it's like whatever deck it's in, it just makes a deck. So I do think that a lot of people underestimate how strong that combo alone really is, because I think it's not the overall decks that make Swain good. It's 100% Swain plus Leviathan equals win condition. So you can just kind of splash that in various deck types, and it does become a very competitive deck.
Yeah, that's sort of why we've seen Swain pop up in so many different archetypes. It doesn't really, you know, there are a couple of cards that you think of as Swain cards. Typically, you want to see Death's Hand, you know, Ravenous Flock. We actually don't see any Noxian Fervors coming out of BBG, which is smart because he doesn't really have the units to sacrifice for it. But really, as long as you have Swain and Leviathan in your deck, you've got that late game assurance. And I'm wondering how much we're going to see that play towards the future of Legends of Runeterra if we're eventually going to start seeing, you know, decks come out that are Allegiance decks that just run Swain and Leviathan.
Yeah, and we do see the feels bad parlay coming out on the Leviathan for the snipe there, putting BBG at 3. So he's definitely in the red zone here, not looking too hot. He does have some more removal in his hand, but GreenSeers is just too wide at this point to really do much. Or sorry, it's too wide for BBG to really do much. A Static Shock would definitely be helpful. A Riptide on the side of BBG would also be helpful, but he does not have it, and I'm not sure if he'll be able to win through next turn.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it. That Riptide just too impactful of a turn, sort of taking advantage of the weak forward of BBG, kind of ripping through that one, as the Tide Rex tends to do.
That was a wow. That was a shellacking. I haven't used that one lately. That was a I don't know. It was at the tip of my tongue. I decided to say it. That was
I'm Urban Dictionarying it. So
you haven't heard shellacking anymore? Oh, come on. I think it's a thing. I hope it's a thing now.
Shellac is a verb to varnish something with shellac.
I don't know, man. I've heard somebody use it.
Informal North American, defeat or beat someone.
Hey, there we go. There it is.
The example sentence they have is they were shellacked in the 1982 election.
That's a really bad example.
What a weird sentence.
That really is a bad example. See, so for anybody in chat, don't ever say that we didn't teach you something, all right? Because we have very regular vocab and dictionary lessons here on this channel when we stream.
Yeah, you can say we didn't teach you anything useful, but
you
can say we didn't teach you anything.
Yeah, keyword useful. Oh, man. So, keeping the Leviathan super early here from BBG. Do you agree with this?
Yeah, so the Karma Lux deck really isn't going to aggro you out early. Sort of the one thing that they do have is this potential, here we go, Remembrance on 5. But because BBG has the 6-mana Thermo Beam, he's going to be able to take out anything that comes out, including that Tough Cavalier. And I think that, this is a deck where you just really need that Leviathan on curve. That's sort of the one card that's difficult for this deck to deal with. They need Will of Ionia, or they need like a doubled up Karma Lux combo going on so that they can double Final Spark it. I was struggling to think of it. But unfortunately for BBG, with this Remembrance coming out on 3, it does mean that he's going to get this Detain on 4. And something that can be a little bit scary for BBG is that there is one copy of Unyielding Spirit in GreenSeers' deck. And I like that adaptation a lot. A lot of the control and burn decks don't actually have a tool for the punish on that because they are going to take these massive turns where they have to tap out.
Yeah, and again, as we discussed last tournament, Unyielding is obviously no longer a burst speed spell. It is now fast thanks to the nerf. So it's gonna be interesting to see if that actually plays a role here and how it gets utilized, or if it even actually goes off with the amount of removal that BBG has. But if it does go down on something like a leveled up Lux, which would be outside of the range of something like a Culling Strike, it's a pretty good shot it will be able to get through.
Yeah, and now BBG dropping down this Ezreal, understanding that this is sort of one of the matchups where there's not a lot of threat for this Ezreal in the early game. Single combat is really GreenSeers' only answer, but without a unit on board, he's not going to have that option available to him. Doesn't have the Shadow Assassin for the elusive blocker, and BBG is actually just going to pass without getting the... Oh, no, he didn't have the attack token. Never mind. It's so hard to see because his camera partially covers it, but now he has the attack token, goes for the open attack. That's going to give him a Mystic Shot. Psych, it's going to give him a Concussive Palm out of GreenSeers.
I was just going to say, GreenSeers doesn't have a lot of just straight up removal. He has a lot of combat-based removal, but he doesn't have any units, so I do think that last turn anyways, it was relatively smart to play the Ezreal, but it was almost never going to get through. And actually, can I say something? I don't know if anybody else has noticed this. I'm sure you have. I feel like you notice stuff like this. You see the Ezreal?
Yeah.
Do you notice the animation change when he gets stunned?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. So I'm not the only one, because it's like he's sleeping or something. I don't know what's going on in the picture.
He's just gone.
Yeah. He just left his desk. Be back soon. I like that. I like those little tiny things in the game. I really like when they do that kind of stuff.
So it looks like BBG is just trying to get as many targets off onto this Mage Seeker as possible. Instead of using the Thermo Beam, does fire off Death's Hand and the Mystic Shot. And this was sort of a scary turn for BBG. He doesn't have a great option to deal with Lux, and this is the turn where that kind of comes down. It's very difficult to deal with a 5 health unit that has Barrier. And, if we don't see it come down now on turn 7, BBG is going to get that Leviathan down, and this is kind of another weak turn from GreenSeers. We could see Will of Ionias to sort of, gain that tempo swing back onto BBG, bouncing this Leviathan consistently, but that's just going to let BBG build up Swains in hand, and then once he runs out of Will of Ionias, BBG is going to be well poised to start taking over the game.
Yeah, and I think you kind of nailed it there, right? I mean, eventually GreenSeers is just going to run out of resources as BBG just keeps taking stuff off the field, but very critically, while he takes this stuff off the field, while he kills that Shadow Assassin with the Mystic Shot, that's more procs towards Ezreal leveling up. And like you said, we see the Leviathan come down now, and he also has the Swain. So anytime now we're going to see this Swain Leviathan combo come off. Will of Ionia can only keep the Leviathan at bay for so long. So we'll see if GreenSeers has some other way of dealing with it.
Yeah, this is where the dance sort of starts up, and GreenSeers is going to be advantaged at least for the next couple of turns, especially on turn 10 if he can get down Karma and Will of Ionia in the same turn. And I don't think he's going to be too mad to let one of these Leviathans stick around if it does mean that he can develop something on the board. For example, BBG throws down Leviathan here, you can just play Karma, there's no punish. Instead, just going to go for the Karma straight away, which does mean this Arachnoid Sentry is going to stun it out into the Ravenous Flock. This also opens up Swain, but it critically leaves him with a potential backup of Thermogenic Beam as well in case Deny does come out of GreenSeers to protect this.
Oof, okay, I like this. I don't know why, but I was a little bit concerned as the first few turns happened that BBG was, because I don't know if you think this as well or if you agree, but I feel like he's playing a little bit faster than usual. I don't know if you kind of get that feeling, but I don't know. It was just concerning me a little bit. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Decisive moves are good when they work out, but it does also make sense to think through a lot of your moves, right?
Yeah, so personally, I've always played extremely quickly in card games, and the way that I found a lot of success and the way people have described it to me is I make the first play that jumps into my head, and 9 times out of 10, that's the most optimal play.
Yeah.
And on, those 1 out of 10 times I do look a little goofy, maybe I should have taken my time a little bit more, but it looks like BBG just knows this matchup inside and out, has played, BBG played a lot of Karma Lux back when that deck was sort of around, so it's very possible that he just has an inherent understanding of the threats in the deck, the turns available to them, and how to play around it most effectively.
Yeah, I'd actually say he was one of the pioneers of the deck. I mean, that was a deck that he almost routinely took to a lot of the tournaments that we had casted. But yeah, I do agree. It's like taking a quiz in high school, right? It's like, the first answer that comes to your head, if it's C, you pick C. So I definitely, I feel you with that.
Yeah, and I think GreenSeers could have played that one a little bit better. I think that if he had just opened past, then BBG would have just probably played the Leviathan, and then you're really safe to get that Karma down. Instead, GreenSeers just pulls the trigger a little bit too quickly on that one and gets punished.
And the Radiant Guardian without the effect. Oh man, it always feels bad. And this one was just straight from GreenSeers' hand. Okay, so it looks like he's actually playing it strictly to get that detain off, which is one of the ways of dealing with it. The detain, so that detain actually came from an investigator. Okay, and this is what we were talking about yesterday, I think, because somebody else was playing the Mage Seeker Investigator, I think in one of those Lux Poro decks. I actually do love that card. I think you said you liked it too. I love detain. I think it is actually a super good card, and it's never really been widespreadly played in the meta. It's just kind of put in specific decks here and there, and I really hope to see a little bit more of it, because you can see in a situation like this, it is doing work.
Yeah, the only time we really saw it see a fair amount of play was towards the end of patch 1.0 when Bannerman was, sort of taking them over the meta everywhere. Unyielding Spirit was being played in every Demacia deck sort of as a 3-of, and we saw it was even BBG specifically that piloted this new kind of Bannerman list where the only spells in your deck were 3 single combat, 1 detain, and 3 Unyielding Spirit. And just having that access to that card to deal with Unyielding Spirits, as well as how well it's synergized with Unyielding Spirit, now I have this unkillable unit that's eaten up all your units, you can't get rid of it. That was sort of the only instance where we ever saw it come out, and now it's making a return because the harrowing is so prominent in the meta. You need to keep these Dariuses and Anivias out of the death pool as long as you can.
Yeah, that is a very good point. And we see BBG... he's got 3 Mushroom Claws in his hands now. He does have another Leviathan, which we were talking about earlier, which, he's basically always going to have a Swain on the field at this point. If he is able to get the other Leviathan down, GreenSeers needs an answer. If he doesn't get an answer on this turn when Leviathan comes down, that's definitely going to be big trouble for GreenSeers. So curious to see if BBG kind of leads with it here on his following turn.
Yeah, and now BBG with the double Ravenous Flock has the option to take out either one of these units that he wants. Do you want to take out the Karma, or do you want to take out this Radiant Guardian and get your Leviathan back? Personally, I think taking out the Radiant Guardian is a little more correct. In this Demacia Ionia list, there's really not a lot that Karma can double up on the next turn that you're going to be worried about. It'd have to be very specifically Karma's Insight of Ages into Judgment. And even then, she's going to be stunned thanks to the Leviathan that you get back off of this Radiant Guardian, so that's even off the table.
And real quick, shout out to Fresh Lobster for the raid. Thank you very much, my dude. Appreciate it a lot. The hottest stash in all of Runeterra, giving us the raid. So hopefully, I don't think he was in NA, only in EU. And I know you made top cut, man. So congrats, as always, making it pretty far into the tournament.
Yeah, congrats for the DOR and PCS sort of accomplishments this weekend. Absolutely rolling it over there in Europe.
Yeah, I think he made semis in both. It looks like he just said semis in chat, so he made semis in both. That is what we like to call, in card game world, consistency, folks.
And speaking of consistency,
no,
BBG continuing to pick up wins here in this tournament. I don't think there's anything GreenSeers can do on this turn. And why are there 3 mushrooms on the top of it? Where did that come from?
That's the win condition. You didn't know? Yeah, and this is exactly what I was concerned about. You know, if GreenSeers didn't have an immediate response to that Leviathan hitting the field, and I don't know, is there any amount of cards or any combination of cards that get him out of this here?
Like I had mentioned, Karma's Inside of Ages into Judgment was really the only one. But with that Karma stunned up, there's not much he's going to be able to do. And if he doesn't get that Leviathan off the field, then BBG can just play the second one, and he'll die at start of round anyway.
Oh, let's see what he has. Yeah, and
he's got a lot of something.
He's got a lot of something. Well, let's just remember he can only play 9 somethings, so you can't play that many. I don't agree with that. I really hope they increase that one of these days. Oh, he's really thinking. I really can't see. I mean, even like 2 wills is still short. Then he has 3 mana left over. He could two wills and a single combat, or 2 of the stuns in a single combat. Okay, so Concerted Strike, similar. Oh, wow, and a single combat. Okay, wow, holy bejesus.
Yeah, but he still loses because BBG just drops the second Leviathan.
Yeah.
Right now, you know, BBG has the entire feast before him. It's just which piece I still want to start off as the appetizer. It looks like it is going to be Ezreal. That mushroom cloud going to end the game. You know, BBG saying, mushrooms, thanks for getting those 3 off the top, making this one a little bit easier to win. We're going to finish off the game with you instead of the Leviathan.
There we go. And we have the 1-1 game now. So we officially have a game. And I think that means with the Ez Swain victory, what does he have left? It looks like
he's got Zed Bannerman and Pilfer, though. He queued up so fast I didn't even see what deck it was. It was the Pilfer deck. Okay. Well, so it's not a Pilfer deck. He's only running Warning Shot and Fury of the North. Those are the only 2 spells in his deck. Does still have the Black Market Merchants, does still have the Yordle Grifters, but without Pilfered Goods, I'm not sure I can, call this a nab deck.
Nah, no. You have to at least play the Pilfered Goods. Otherwise, no go on the nab deck. This is, to me, just your typical kind of aggro-esque MF Sejuani deck. He's not playing. I feel like the Raider, the Ruthless Raider, has kind of come out of style. I haven't really seen anybody playing that as of late. Like you said, he is playing the 3 of Black Market Merchant. It's weird. It is actually really weird to only see 3 Warning Shot and 3 Fury of the North as the only spells in there. So I'm curious to see how this deck performs.
Yeah, I mean, it's understandable. Make It Rain is really not super well poised into the format. None of the aggro decks outside of Kinku Elusives really have 1 health units that you can sort of shore up. And this just reminds me of the Pilfer decks, So initially we saw this as like the go-to Pilfer deck. Then we saw a couple of players experimenting with cutting the Black Market Merchants and the Pilfered Goods. And that's really when I started to heavily compare this deck to Bannerman, where you're just playing this tempo out kind of style. And now with this extremely low spell count, this does just once again feel like a Bannerman deck. You just want to go wide on board. You have these powerful late game tools in the Sejuani and the Riptide Rex, these 6 mana units, really just looking to take over the game. And Razor Scale Hunter is a phenomenal tempo card. It's like a cheaper Genevieve in most scenarios. You're going to play it, get that scout challenge off, down trade onto something, go back in, up trade onto something, and it should be really easy for BBG to maintain advantage. And that's kind of where the Pilfered Goods and things like that came into this, was they were just cards that helped you maintain advantage. They give you free cards.
We do see the attack here from BBG, getting the 2 damage in. If he is able to get like an early MF and Sejuani on the board, like he already hasn't gotten the MF down, he's opting for some of the Yordles and stuff like that instead. If he is able to put a little bit more pressure on GreenSeers, he might be able to finish off quickly, but the issue is he doesn't want to commit fully to the board. If a Lux does come down and levels up quickly, he's going to start seeing all of his units go bye-bye. And he definitely does not want that to happen. So it looks like he is going to go ahead and go with the Razor Scale Hunter next.
This is I'm trying to think of what the punish was here for just throwing Raven's biggest fan on. Oh, it was Radiant Guardian. I was trying to think of why you wouldn't throw out the block, but it is turn 5. You don't want your opponent to get that Radiant Guardian down because you don't have a phenomenal answer for that. I think you want to save your Sejuani for something else. Just on top of the fact that the Sejuani's not actually going to kill it, it is going to live with 1 HP. So I think BBG wants to sort of save that for a more awkward turn. He'd be a little bit happier to see it come down now as opposed to the Lux.
Yeah, and that is one of those key breakpoints that you mentioned there. If it does come down, the Sejuani cannot kill it on its own. So Radiant Guardian, I mean, that's one of the reasons why it's such a good card. That tough attribute just makes it so insane when it comes to trading with other 5, or in this case, even 6 cost units. Probably, in my opinion, one of the better cards in the game, especially with having lifesteal and all the combat tricks that Demacia has. Suddenly, you could be at 2 health and get back up to, with like a concerted strike, let's say, get back up to 20 very, very quickly.
Yeah, and BBG is actually in a really good position right now. This Citrus Courier that we had talked about a little bit earlier, is sort of a weak point in decks like this. This is sort of one of those big scenarios where he gets blowout potential with it. He could either fire it off this turn, depending on how the blocks come out. He has the warning shot if he wants to throw it out next turn after developing something like this Mage Seeker and this Misfortune, or a Sejuani. He's got a lot of options available to him, but I do think this Citrus Courier is about to come up huge. The problem with these Karma Lux decks is you do not handle wide boards well.
No, and that's what I was mentioning earlier, right? Like, if he is able to go wide and stay wide and really put a lot of aggression on GreenSeers, he's probably going to be in a good spot here. Like you said, they don't handle it well. There's not a lot of AoE removal or something like a Ruination to really deal with the board. There's a lot of single target stuff. Even the Concerted Strike is only single target. It's just, a bigger unit is usually what it's going to be removing. So I do like the Yordle Grifter here if he does go with that as opposed to the Sejuani. The Lux is out, but unfortunately has the barrier on it for now. So there's a pretty good shot GreenSeers will be able to get it leveled up here in the next turn.
Yeah, and that that Lux coming out here. So I want to talk about this pass from BBG on the previous turn. So he understood that GreenSeers, he's going to float 6 mana. I'd rather take advantage of, sort of this, him tapping out on the following turn. I think BBG's okay floating the turn, even though GreenSeers hypothetically does get better as we get more towards this turn 10 and the Karma Enlightenment gets to come out. As soon as BBG could find a Riptide Rex, this game is basically over, but I think he wanted his opponent to be a little bit more tapped out so that he could go for a little bit more of a setup and try to get this big Citrus Courier off on the following turn, since he did start off with the Yordle Grifter. Now we're going to see MF come down, and this could just get single combated, which I think is one of the reasons that he wanted to throw that Omen Hawk under the bus on the Lux in order to get that barrier off of it, make the single combat a little bit more punishing.
Yeah, the single combat. I don't know. See, now if he does play the MF, he kind of, like you said, it makes it vulnerable. He can just go ahead and drop a Sejuani on the following turn and straight up trade with the Lux. And it looks like, there's no single combat yet, so he may be able to get this sweet Sejuani trade on the Lux here, which looks like it's exactly what he's gonna do. That just feels so good, man. Get it? That's like the target that you want for Sejuani coming down in this matchup.
All right, there was a little bit of a concern because, there is no removal in this deck out of BBG, and GreenSeers does play that one of Unyielding Spirit. I was a little concerned that, the Unyielding might come down onto the Lux.
Yep.
That would level it up. That would give it an attack point for the turn. That would also, give him that final spark. And things could have gone really bad for BBG if things like that happened. But now Will of Ionia is sort of the one threat that's left available, and it looks like we are going to see it. Could still be like Concerted Strike, single combat. There's the Concerted Strike, taking out the Sejuani. And that's going to be Warning Shot, and I think he has another Warning Shot to follow this up with, which will actually activate the Sejuani and Frostbite GreenSeers' entire board.
Wow, that's insane. You got to love that Warning Shot triggering Sejuani's level up. And can I just say, got BBG smiling like a like when he saw the Radiant Guardian come down. God, I haven't seen a bigger smile on BBG in a while. Like, because it was not with the additional lifesteal and tough. And he knows that the last few turns, that's what you were talking about earlier. He was very much playing around, not losing a unit, so that Radiant Guardian couldn't come down and get those added effects.
All right, so it looks like BBG has mapped it out and understands that this is not lethal on this turn, so he's going to save that Warning Shot for the Citrus Courier on the following turn. Oh, never mind. The Misfortune. Okay, yeah, he just needs to protect the Sejuani. The Misfortune ability is actually going to Frostbite the board, and that's just going to be a scoop out of GreenSeers, so that's BBG picking this one up.
Picking up the 2-1. It was looking bad in the beginning, I'm not going to lie. It was looking rough in the beginning. He did lose very, very handily and fell behind by 1 win, but he ends up picking up 2 wins there, and I think that puts him at, Jesus, how many rounds are we at? That was round 8, so he's at 6-2 now, right?
Yeah, that does sound correct.
All right, and that is it. That wraps up round 8. So everybody, as always, stay healthy, stay positive. I hope shit just works for you. Peace out.